So I'm looking for like remains of something, because you ain't going to get a full shall we say a full church or a full whatever, you know, whatever the remains were here, which I'm assuming this is it. This is obviously the remains of something here. Again, I'm spectating though. I don't think that one's on actually. Welcome to another video. So today we're looking, well, we're actually Watergrove, so we're looking at the water levels today. This area is really interesting, to be honest. I've done so many videos up here, day and night videos really. So today's video obviously is the water levels. I want to try and document the water levels because I can only assume that Watergrove is at approximately 40% water, which is pretty cool because you can see little features of the old town, because Watergrove used to have an old town. I mean, you can see features without water because you just go to Memory Lane and have a look. So that's what we're going to do today in today's video. It shouldn't be a long one really. It should be just like the bait and stand video. So we're coming to the end of August now and I want to try to finish off the summer season really on a bit of a drought video. So if you don't know anything about Watergrove, like I said, before the reservoir there used to be an old settlement here. It used to have shall we say, it used to have like I don't want to use the word a gun club, yeah, but it had something of that nature. It had a town church. I'll show you some pictures anyway and you can have a look for yourself. So these pictures you've seen at the beginning, I just want to just go over them again because this history is really important for this area, I think. And these would have been, well, these are some of the pictures of when the town once stood and the civilisations and the people of that area. Not just the people, the lifestyle as well, the life that they led and how they survived really in a small settlement like this. And this was, like I say, the first ever settlement of Wardle. So with the drought and the water levels being so low, this is an ideal opportunity to film this because the last time I seen Watergrove really low was in 1992. And in 1992 I was just a teenager, so I just want to try and document this really and to see if this is really the remains, which I suspect that it is, because you can just tell in this video with some of the things and some of the surroundings that this isn't flat land by any means. So when it floods, I don't know if you noticed, but all the grass has been cut recently. It looks rather nice. When it floods, the water comes down there and goes down there. Now there's a pond down there. There's probably been no water in there for at least maybe 8 months. That's where the water was into that pond, and then it goes downwards into the rivers. And that's not seen any water for a long time. I'll show you what it looks like, yeah, when there's water here. So I wonder when we'll see it like this again, with the water levels being so low that you'll see in this video, because I don't know when this was shot. It's probably in the last 2 years, I would have thought. But this is obviously its process of when the overfill or the overspill of water gets too high in the reservoir. So the wind is just going to destroy the video, so I'll have to do a voiceover and just narrate what's going on here. You can clearly see there's contractors on some kind of raft at the bottom of the tower. Now, because I know the area well, I was aware there was a suction pipe at the bottom of the tower. Now, you can't see it on that side, but there is another shot that I'll show you where you can see this pipe. This pipe obviously sucks the water into the treatment facility. That's why there's a tower there. That's what I'm under the assumption of. That's what used to happen. I don't know if that's what happens now. It might still happen now that way they take, because the treatment facility is just on the other side to the left. Although you can't see it in this shot. So that's what I believe happens with the water, or what used to happen with the water. The water used to get sucked to the treatment facility on the left hand side. Now I don't know why there's a crane there. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what kind of work they're doing, but I'm sure it's something to do with the water. Now I'm only assuming and spectating that there's water being pumped out of this reservoir manually or in a different method to get to the treatment facility, because the suction pipe, there's no water there because it's too low, so it'd be just sucking in fresh air really, but that's what the shot should look like. This is the reservoir when it's quite high usually, and then the water spills into that overspill that I showed you before. So I'm just trying to show you the process of what the reservoir usually looks like. So the same thing really from Baton's Dam, there's a significant amount of water loss. Now I was reading in the press that there's all the water reservoirs are running at approximately 40% at the minute, where last year it was at 67%. It just goes to show clearly there's a lack of rainfall recently, so we've had really a dry spring. So again, I use the word I'm spectating. It gets kind of boring after a bit, but that's what I've got to say. That them pipes, or that metal, shall we say, suction, there's two pipes there really. I'm assuming they're the suction pipes at the bottom of the tower. They obviously take the water in, and obviously because there's no water there, then obviously they have to use a different method to transport the water to the treatment facility. And obviously you can see the difference in water levels from the video we just seen last, where the water levels were quite high. That's got to be at least maybe 10 metres, that, maybe more, I'm not quite sure to be honest. But it goes to show the water level loss. So if you're from the area like me, you'll know this is a rare sight really. You don't really often see this, where the water levels get so low. Now there was a drought in 2022, but I don't think it was this bad. And there was, the last time I remember that low was 1992. I don't remember the reservoir ever being this low in all the years that I've been around here, to be honest. So you said it for yourself, there's contracting work going on. I don't actually know what's going on. But obviously I could just see the crane lifting something up in the air. I've got no idea. I can only assume and guess like what work is going on, but there wasn't this at Baton's Dam. Like I mentioned, that there could possibly be contractors on site, and I didn't see any. Like when you come here, it's quite obvious that they're carrying out work. So there's some little pockets I want to have a look at whilst the water's down. So again, I'll just kind of say the same thing as I said last time. I don't know if the water levels have dropped, whether that's natural, meaning due to the drought, the water's evaporated, or whether they've actually took the water. Now, realistically, I don't think it matters, because United Utilities claim that they can move 77 million tonnes of water, or gallons of water, should I say, not tonnes, per day. Now, that's all well and good, and I'm not disputing that, but I'd like to know, just a question really, where from? Like, where you moving it from? It's just a question I have really when it comes to stuff like this. Like, where's the secret water stash, in other words? Because, like, you know, all the reservoirs, that's like where they hold most of the water. So if they can move 77 million gallons per day, like, where from? But that's approximately what Baton's Dam needs for it to refill back up. So it usually, I think it's 75 million gallons or whatever it is. But when it's your drought, you can't help but make this type of content. So I think this would be like my last summer video, and then we'll get ready for the go season really, which will be in October. So I want to go down to the visitor centre really and have a look and walk down the old road of the village and see what we can see, because I know the village is obviously around here. I think I can see some of it now, in fact. So I'll show you anyway as I get a little bit closer. I just want to make sure it's safe enough so I don't get stuck. So I've never seen Watergrove like this before. Last time I seen the tower like that was a picture, actually. I've never seen the tower like that where there's actually no water at the bottom. But I seen a picture in 1992 when it showed it, and it's more or less how you see it now. That's the lowest I've ever seen it. I've never seen Watergrove like this, and I've lived here for 40 odd years, and I've always come up here to do, you know, videos. And so let's have a look at normal water levels, what the reservoir should look like usually. So I've just done a comparison video, so I'm going to show you in a minute what it actually looks like today. But I just want to try and paint a picture for you what this area should usually look like. so I'm sure you can see the difference in comparison. So I have to do a voiceover because the wind seems to be funneling into these areas that I'm filming in. This happened at Burton's Dam as well. It's just something, I won't say strange really, but it's something rather annoying because you can't obviously use your audio from the video that you've shot. So you just have to do a voiceover, so I can just have to narrate what's actually going on. But I shouldn't have to say much because you can see for yourself the water level difference in the video I just showed you before. And I'm just pointing out there where the water level's usually up to, the black markings in the stone. So what's different to Watergrove than like my last video in Burton's Dam is this obviously had a civilization in the area, and this was one of the first civilizations. There's as much evidence around the area to suggest this, and there's been archaeological teams and etc. that have come in and they've confirmed this. So while this area may have been grassland one time, I could like I say, I'm only guessing or spectated that there would have been fields or some kind of plain area to go along with the drowned village of Watergrove. Now, what's interesting is there's two holes here, which I can only suggest that there was something put in there at one point, maybe to do with the reservoir or maybe to do with the first civilizations that came in. There is another hole as well, which suggests there was something large maybe into the ground that needed some kind of foundation. And I'm just pointing out the pumps around Watergrove that seem to be, I can only guess, are pumping water into the treatment facility, which I mentioned previously. So I have seen previously that there's water been pumped in from pipes that are, I don't use the word hidden, but United Utilities know where the pipes are, so they can pump water back in, so it's not that difficult to replace the water at Watergrove. But I would have thought each site's different that's got low water levels throughout the northwest. So I find this quite rare, to be honest, because this doesn't happen often. It's quite a rare event, so I always think it's important to document it for history reasons, because I always find Watergrove, the whole story behind the drowned village of Watergrove, really interesting, to be honest. There's actually a book that you can get. It's called The Drowned Village of Watergrove, that's the reference that I'm using here because that's what it is. It's obviously a village forgotten because obviously it's usually submerged. But there's more than one site of previous settlements here. There's obviously Memory Town Lane and Old Tom's Wood, I think it's called. I've been to both of these anyway previously. But this obviously goes and gives more evidence of the past of what life used to be like in one time, I think around the 18th, 19th century. Now, I did do a video last year called Lost Boy, the Lost Boy Cairn, I think it was, where there was a boy called Alec who got lost on the moors, or lost on Brown Wardle near Crook Hill, and obviously he got lost in a blizzard and unfortunately succumbed to the elements of the blizzard, and it took 4 days for them to find his body. And it's stories like this that really fascinate me of the area. They're just like little stories and how life was like and how they lived and how difficult it was compared to what we have today. So I'm currently making my way to the road that comes down from the visitor centre. Once I see that, I'll just follow that road and then it should take me to the town or the village or the remains. And this is from the previous research that I've done and the obviously local knowledge that I know of previously anyway. So this is a location I know quite well. Now, I don't know if it's Memory Town Lane or Memory Town Garden, so forgive me if it offends anyone, but I just know it as Memory Town Lane. But what I'm referring to is another site that's got more features, if that makes sense, and they're more well preserved. And you can see obviously this is one of the pumps where they must be pumping water out into the treatment facility. So I have to ask the same question I asked in my last video. If the water levels go to, we'll use the word zero, so there's actually no water here, what kind of impact will that have on the environment and the people? I use the word communities actually. What impact will that have on the surrounding communities and the environment? Now, I'm sure this isn't the case, right? I'm sure the water levels will get filled back up, but that is just an open question that I wondered. And then, obviously, I do have another question as well, is how come there's no archaeological digs being done whilst the water's down to try and find out more about the history of Watergrove? Now, I know there's metal detecting channels on YouTube, and I don't know many of them, but I've heard of them. But this would be a great place to come, I would have thought, to try and find things like coins, for example, or any other artifacts that have any kind of metal in them. There will be artifacts in the floor and around these areas that I think will be extremely significant in the forms of history. I don't know why it cut off there. I was saying in forms of history. So this, like I say, would doing a session here I think would be really beneficial. I'm sure something would be significant and it wouldn't take long to find, pings on the metal detector. So here is, like I say, it's absolutely fantastic with the water being down, with some of the features if you're into the historic values of the past of Watergrove. So I think finding stuff like coins would be significant, or any other items that would possibly be picked up by a metal detector, just to see if there's any historical items that can be found whilst the water's down like this. You can see quite clearly here there's some kind of rock formation. I don't think that's natural. It must have been from a building of some kind. And again, down here, you can see it's not flat. To the left-hand side, when I pan the camera to the left, there must have been something of some kind of significance here, because, like I say, it's not flat land. There's obviously concrete. There's something concrete there as well, close to my feet. That must have been a wall of some kind. Again, you can see the brickwork as well, which is pretty significant, like the masonry work. There's some kind of grid here, which, I don't actually know if it's a grid or not, but that's what it looks like. So maybe this is how part of an irrigation system. Again, I'm not too sure because I can't see it clearly. But I think obviously that's something to do with the village, along with this leftover wall. And there's obviously an exterior wall there as well, just where my hand was. And obviously I'm just trying to explain that there's obviously, this area is usually well and truly submerged. Now, I'm sure that would have been a common sound back in that era, as cattle would have been used heavily. So one could assume with the books and the history and the research that goats and horses and other cattle would have been used quite heavily. So what are these two concrete blocks here? I'm only assuming this is part of the old factory that was here, because Watergrove did have a factory that you're seeing in the photos at the beginning. So this obviously tells a story of Watergrove's past, with historical features that you can see now, and it tells you more about the lifestyle that they lived back then, as I mentioned before. And the story as well of Watergrove is truly magnificent if you ever get a chance to read the Book of Watergrove. So if you don't want to read the book, you can just go to Google, and this is what it'll say. It'll tell you about a small Victorian textile community in Rochdale was largely submerged in the 1930s to construct Watergrove Reservoir. It said the village was supported by mills and farms and featured a Methodist church and an orchid public house. So the original purpose was built in the 1840s to house workers for the local mills, particularly for Watergrove Mill, which I'm sure that's what it was looking at there, the remains of it really. Obviously that would produce wool and cotton. So the town held about 300 residents, and there was also a pub there too. So because there was no school there, the children had to walk to Wardle. Now what happened to the village eventually, it got compulsory purchased for what we have today, and that's why I believe this area has a little bit of a grudge sometimes at night time. So it says in a document there that it was 1930s the compulsory purchase order was given, and that's when the village was more or less abandoned. So I guess the rest is common knowledge. I mean, I don't have to narrate that out, because it's quite common knowledge that we have obviously spoke about the submerged village, the recreational area, the activities. It's quite simplified really, and obviously the historical interest is what this video is really about. So we'll have a look at more of the footage, and then we'll just end the video, because I really think it's important that I get my points across and don't drag out this video. So I think what's important as well is just to show you where the water levels are at now, and this reservoir was created to solve the water shortage in Rochdale at that time. So would there be a water shortage in Rochdale if this reservoir stays empty? Now I don't know the answer to that. I really don't, and that's why I'm asking that question. and you can see there's some kind of trench line here that was possibly made for irrigation, one could assume, for the abandoned village or the drowned village of Watergrove. That's what that looks like to me. It looks like an old irrigation system, so maybe there was farming here at one point and they had to irrigate the water. So I'm sure there's more features that are still submerged, and I'm going to come back here in about 2-3 weeks to have a look again, because if they're pumping more water out, then I'll be able to see more, and it's possible a night investigation might reveal more, like a night paranormal investigation may reveal more about the past of this area, but it's always difficult to investigate an area that's been, or is usually submerged. Now, I can't explain why that is, but the results are usually negative. So I'd have to do this more and more to give more of an insight on why there's negative results on an area that used to be submerged. But the only worry I've got is the wind, because obviously if it's windy now in the day, it'd be windy at night. Now I can get away with doing voiceovers in the day, but when I'm using paranormal equipment, I can't. You have to listen to like the audio on the equipment unless there's nothing coming through. And I'm just showing some of the old features here that have been maybe thrown in the water over time. There's some really old cans, Stella cans and Strongbow cans that don't look like they do now. So Watergrove is also known for its boating activities, and they usually do that at the visitor centre, and I'm sure they won't be doing any boating activities anytime soon with the water levels down low like this. Hollingworth Lake's the same, so obviously the only thing you can do at the minute is get a dinghy on it, really. There's no windsurfing going on here, which is a shame really for people that want to partake in them activities that they can't due to the drought. And this is obviously an old can of Stella here, I think. There's obviously some kind of, I think it's tartan cider or whatever it is, or tartan bitter, and there's an old Strongbow can there. So that's obviously, they must be over 10-year-old them. They're quite a little archaeological find them, if you ask me, old cans. So the darker patch there, you kind of want to stay away from that, because that's usually, that you can get usually stuck in, or use the word sinking mud, so it's important to stay away from the dark areas of the mud if you come down here and you want to come and have a look. Try and stay away from the water, because the last thing you want to do is get stuck, especially if you're on your own. And this is the second hole that I was talking about, where something of significance would have gone in there at one point, because I don't think that's naturally been formed through water. I just can't see that, to be honest. So there must have been something of some kind of significance at one point. So I'm sure there's other areas that I could go to, but I just wanted to look at the village really of the remains and try and have a look for any features, so I've got some kind of better understanding of the area and the history really of Watergrove. And also, not just that, if I come up here at night and do a night investigation, then I've got kind of a good idea where I need to go to try and use my equipment to try and extract stuff from the past. I mean, I think Gorsie would be really significant here, as it would draw significant pictures from the past to give us a better idea of what it used to look like and the activity that used to go on here. So it says Watergrove Mill, 1881, which is probably would have been in there somewhere where we've seen it, some of the ruins maybe. But I don't want to make this video too long. I just want to show this really, the drought, document it, and then go home. That's more or less the end of the video. I could show you more Watergrove, but I really don't need to. I feel I've made my point now. You've seen where the water level's up to. I could go all the way around really, but we can obviously see here that there's contract work going on. It seems to be pumping out more water. I can only assume that to be the case. I can't really make much out from the town, because obviously it would have been from a long time ago. So that is more or less the end of the video. I'll come back in about 2 weeks to see if we can see any more remains, and that's it from Watergrove. So this picture is one or two things. It's the old Watergrove pumping station, or it's Watergrove Mill, and I just wanted to show you these pictures once again as the lifestyle and the people of this area, the residents, and obviously the history really, which I think is really significant and for me is really underrated. For me, this goes on par with Pendle Hill because it's got such a historic value to it, but there's just no witches, so people just don't see it that way.